Hello guys, in this video I gave you just a quick general introduction to Blender, and I'll pretty much cover most of the tools that I use, so if you've never used Blender before, this video will be for you. Now if you're already an expert in Blender or intermediate, this video will probably be not that helpful, but maybe you'll learn a few things here. So the first thing to note guys is that I have not been using Blender as long as 3ds Max. I've been using 3ds Max for 10 years and Blender for about, a year and a half on and off. Even now, I don't quite use it as often in 3ds Max, so I don't know as many Blender tricks as I do in 3ds Max. However, I think you will still get a very good foundation understanding of Blender just from this course. So let's look at some of the basics. The first thing I like to do is turn off the 3D helper there, the 3D cursor. That's the 3D cursor. So you simply click right here under the viewport overlays. You can turn off 3D cursor. The 3D cursor, of course, does have some various uses, but for most of the time, I just kind of keep it off. So I also like to turn off the floor as well. Once again, if you like the floor, if it helps to ground your eyes and kind of establish you in 3D space, you can keep that on. You can also just turn that off. We can also turn off, for example, the Y, because we know where the Y is because we know where the X is. So I mostly model using the X-axis symmetry. So if you select an object and you press Shift-D, you are making a duplicate of it. You can press the middle mouse button to kind of constrain it to an axis. So you pretty much press the middle mouse button and kind of move, and you will kind of snap to various axes. You can also, of course, press X, Y, or Z to limit it to that axis right there. All right, to delete objects, you simply select them, press X, and then delete. So, guys, I prefer to use gizmos. If you don't want to use gizmos, that's fine. You can just use G to move it, and then, for example, X to move on the X-axis, Z on the Z-axis, Y on the Y-axis. You can middle click again. So I think it's very useful, guys. I'm just more used to pressing using gizmos. So you press G for grab, for move. You press R for rotate, and you press S for scale. For me, I've already got S set to snap, so when I press S, it activates the snap settings. But if you're just using the default Blender, so here's the thing, guys. Because I come from 3ds Max, I have a lot of muscle memory from using 3ds Max hotkeys, which is why I prefer, when I use any program, I prefer to set up using the 3ds Max hotkeys that I've become accustomed to. So that's why I prefer, Alt-X for transparency, for X-ray mode, because that's 3ds Max's default mode. So if you want to stay consistent with the other Blender users, I recommend just keeping G as move, R for rotate, and S for scale. Because I use 3ds Max, I'm used to W, E, R for move, rotate, and scale, because those are 3ds Max's default hotkeys. Now, I do think 3ds Max, it's a little bit more easier 3ds Max because you have Q for selection, W for move, E for rotate, and R for scale. And I think that all those keys being close together is just very convenient. And so I've set Q to be select as well. And so when I press Q multiple times, in fact, just to make sure that you know what I'm doing here, I'm going to go into preferences. All right, key binding and Q. So let's see, we've got quick favorites here. See what else we've got here. Set tool by name. So guys, there's a very strange thing about Blender hotkeys. So if you are going to change the Blender hotkeys or the key map, I will tell you this piece of advice. Go down here and turn off autosave preferences. So here's what you're going to do. Whenever you want to change any Blender hotkey, you're going to go ahead and change it. You're going to see if everything works just fine. If something stops working, you're going to go ahead and revert to saved preferences. So if you turn off autosave preferences, what that's going to do is prevent you from accidentally messing something up when you change a hotkey, for example. Sometimes when you change a hotkey, guys, it can mess things up. So whenever you're experimenting with hotkeys, turn this off. And if you change a hotkey and everything works just fine, then you click on Save Preferences. If you change a hotkey and something doesn't work, you can turn off Blender, close Blender, reopen it, or just go to revert to saved preferences. Okay, so I think that the Q is maybe this right here, set tool by name. Sometimes various functions are just called set tool by name. So that's in 3D view. So if I press Q multiple times, you can see how I switch to a select circle, select lasso, tweak, and then the default select box. All right. So we're going to have this open so I can kind of show you what I'm doing here. All right. So in Blender, you have object mode, which means you can move the object at its kind of object level. And if you press tab, you're in edit mode. If you're coming from 3ds Max, you can think of this as the sub-object mode, vertices, edges, and faces. Although, unlike in 3ds Max, we don't have borders and we don't have elements as well. Now, if you want to select this whole element, you select that and you press Ctrl L, and that is the hotkey for select linked all by default. That is under select. Oh, let's move this to the right. Select, select linked, and then linked right here. And that will allow you to pretty much select the whole element. So Blender has, like many other programs, a right-click system that allows you to reset what you're doing by right-clicking. So for example, if you're rotating this and it's at a very strange angle, you want to kind of abort this, you don't have to. You can of course let go and press Ctrl Z to undo that, or you can simply right-click. As you can see, it's back to its original position. Same for scale. Oh, what's happening here? Right-click. Same for move. Oh no, where is it? Right-click. However, this can also be a source of frustration if you are not aware of this in some situations. For example, if we go into edit mode by pressing tab, if we select this face and we extrude it and we right click, now it may seem like we undid that, but actually we extruded it. It's just that it's at the very exact position before the extrude. What this means is that if I now try and move this, you can see actually an extrusion has occurred. It's just right back at the beginning. So if you guys actually want to undo that, you have to press Ctrl Z, not just right click. Otherwise, this will be a source of frustration when you're subdividing Boolean or anything else, because what you actually will have is an extrusion that's at the same position. So you have like double the vertices and edges at the exact same position. That is something to be aware of. And that can trip you up in other situations as well. Now, you may be wondering what's the purpose of that. Isn't that just confusing? Well, it can be useful if you're creating a plane right here. All right, let's say I want to extrude this edge down here. Well, if I just extrude, you can see it's at this really strange angle, which I don't want. So I'm going to, and notice how right now, because I pressed Ctrl Z, there is no extrusion of the edges. So we pressed our hotkey for extrude. We right click, and extrusion has occurred, and now we can move it according to where we want it to be. So it can actually be very useful for that, guys. That is why it's here. Same for, let me just A to select everything, and then you can press A twice to deselect, or you can press Alt A. So you can right click, and you have a number of different settings here. I recommend that you play around with these. A lot of these I don't use. I mean, I'll use things like new face from edges, fill, bridge, a little bit of bevel, but a lot of these I don't really use at all. So we could use, for example, subdivide, and that's going to give ourselves more complexity here. We can have smoothness, which will actually, it's almost like we're using subdivision. So we got this happening like so. All right, so now that we've got this, let's say that I hold Shift. So you select a face right here by left clicking. If you hold down Alt and left click right here, you will select this loop. If you hold down Alt and left click right here, you will select it in this direction. So it depends on which edge you're close to when you hold down Alt. If you hold down Shift and left click, you will add to your selection. If you hold down Control left click, you will select what you clicked on, and everything in between. If you left click to select something and hold down Control Shift and then left click, you will select everything in between and kind of following the length and width. This is a very nice selection feature of Blender. I don't know if Max has something like this, but this is one of those features that I wish Max had as well. I very much like that feature. Let's practice doing some selection here and then Control Shift, and there you go, guys. Now we can extrude. All right, so I've got this extrusion. As you can see, this is in the surface normals, but I don't want the surface normals in this case. So I'm going to right click. I want just the Z-axis, and I can move on the Z-axis. So as you can see, guys, This is why you can sometimes want to right click after extrusion so you can move it in your direction. All right, if you want to flatten things out, what you can do is scale and then press 0 to zero it out on that axis. So once again, I can start on the y-axis, press 0. It's now flattened according to that. Now, a lot of very nice tools in Blender are turned off by default, which is a little bit strange. I'm not quite sure why they did that. I assume it's because they don't want to overwhelm beginners. But I do recommend you go into add-ons and turn on some things. Now you can press N to turn on extra tools on the right. There are lots of very helpful ones here. So that is under Edit. We have something called Loop Tools. Once again, some of these things, guys, don't come with Blender. For example, niche loops, forgotten tools, and some other things here, quadri measure. Those do not come with Blender by default. Now, the nice thing about Blender is that just like with 3ds Max, there's lots of free tools, and there are also some commercial tools as well. So in the accompanying text file for this course, you will find links to these nice little tools right here, which you can simply install. To install them, go into add-ons. First of all, download the zip file. Do not unzip it, do not extract it, simply leave it as a zip file. Go into add-ons, click on install, navigate to the folder where you have the zip file and just double click on it and you will install the add-on. Then you have to click on this checkbox to activate it. And then of course, if you've got autosave preferences off, then you click on save preferences. So niche loops, forgotten tools comes with selection sets, that's free. Loop tools comes with Blender by default, same as tissue tools. Quadri measure is commercial, but it's very much recommended, so it's definitely worth the money. Loop tools comes with Blender by default, so simply use this search box to search for loop. You will find loop tools, click the checkbox right here, and then save preferences, and then loop tools become active right here. So loop tools is off by default, but there's a lot of things here that you definitely will want on. For example, we can use flatten to flatten things out. We can use G-stretch. So let's go over loop tools a little bit right here. All right, so we turn that off for now. All right, so if you want to straighten things out, we can use G-stretch for that. So I can select this right here, then I can hold Control and select this. I can use G-stretch, and as you can see, it straightens that out. Very useful for any situations. Very useful for just kind of modifying the shape of your object here. Flatten, left click, Control Shift, left click, and flatten will flatten that out. Very useful. If you're wondering, how is this useful? Well, it's useful for getting all sorts of interesting freeform shapes. So I've got that set to Shift E. By default, Shift E is used for the mean crease right here. So to assign a shortcut, you simply right click and then assign shortcut and press what you want. If there's already a shortcut, you can change shortcut. So I've got flatten set to Shift E. By default, Shift E is set to the mean crease right here. So just to avoid confusion, I'm telling you guys right now. Now, a lot of times you will want to have a hotkey for mean crease. For me, I don't use it that often, but just be aware that the default for mean crease is Shift E. You select your edges, you press Shift E, and then you can right away move left or right to change the strength of the crease. But since I'm used to using a flatten in 3ds Max, I've got that set to Shift E. I've just got that set to Shift E. So we move that up here. Can move a little bit here, move it down. All right, I'm going to press Control 3, and that is the hotkey for adding subdivision. So when you press Control on 1, 2, 3, maybe all the way up to 6, you will add subdivision with that many levels. So because I press Control 3, it's applied a subdivision modifier with 3 levels. Now, if I press Control 1, you can see how it switches to 1, Control 2, switches to 2. All right, as you can see, guys, we can also right click and shade smooth. So my recommended setup is that I've got this set to shade flat. And whenever I'm modeling here, guys, I think that Blender's performance for subdivision is a lot worse than 3ds Max. So I like to keep all the modifiers pretty much off when I'm working, and then press Tab to turn them all on again. So pretty much I want to have this button off right here. That will keep subdivision off when you're in edit mode, and when you press Tab in object mode, it will activate this. So guys, when I'm working here, I don't like to have anything smooth, because then it becomes much more difficult to see the different faces here. So I like to have this be shade flat, but I don't want it to be faceted when it's being subdivided. So here's my workaround. I go into Object Data Properties, go into Normals, Smooth All. By default, it's 30 degrees. And then I also apply a weighted normal on top and have that be off. So what happens now, guys, is that when I'm in edit mode, it's all faceted here. I can very easily see all the different faces. And then when I press tab, all the modifiers are applied and it smooths itself out. So the way the modifiers work in Blender is that if you press Shift D, you will copy it. If you press Control A, you will apply it. But this only works when you are in object mode, not edit mode. All right, so for example, how this can be useful is that if we apply mirror, and you can use this little icon right here, left click and hold that to drag it. Sometimes the order of your modifiers is very important, guys. All right, we're gonna flip that. Okay, so let's say I move this to the left. All right, so now what's happening here, guys, is that the mirror modifier is mirroring from here to here. But let's say I want to work from the right to the left. So what I would do here, I'll press Shift D to duplicate this, Control A to apply this, and now as you can see, it's on both sides. Now I can delete, let's say, the right half, press X and delete the faces. Notice how this appears. That's because it's still going from left to right. And since there's nothing on the left, it's going to mirror that nothingness to the right and everything disappears. So I need to actually turn off the flip. And now, guys, we're going from right to left. So depending on how you feel on any given day, you may want to work from the left to the right or right to left, and this is how you can do it. So once again, that is Shift D, Control A. Now I can flip it and delete the right side X, and now I'm working from left to right. All right, let's go over a few more of the loop tools. So another very useful one is circle right here. This is just amazing for getting some nice circular details. All right, so I've got that set to Shift-Alt-D. Sometimes it's a good idea to turn off flatten. So if you're working with a curve right here, now if I use circle, by default it's set that to flatten. So it actually will ruin the curvature, especially if I have more extreme curves. So you can actually turn off flatten. I find that to be good in most cases. So this is excellent for quickly adding circular details. Then you can inset, which I've set to Control Spacebar. And then you can extrude, which I've set to Shift Spacebar. So for me, guys, Shift Spacebar for extrude and Control Spacebar for inset is just a very nice combination. Tab, and now I can see what the final subdivision looks like. So guys, I can have fun just adding loops here and then just extruding and then just moving. So G allows you to move in screen space according to where your camera currently is, your view currently is. If you press GG, it allows you to slide along the edges, which is very useful. Another feature of Blender I very much like is the GG feature. So for example, let's say you want to smooth out this curve, this sharp angle, GG, GG, GG. As you can see, it's nice and smooth now. So this is a very nice default hotkey for Blender, GG. All right, so if I want to connect this, I can hold down Alt and then left click. I can extrude that and move that. So you can see, guys, that the Shift Space hotkey works both with edges as well as faces. So let's go back into Preferences, Key Map. All right, so one thing I don't like about Blender is that you actually have to type out the hotkey. If I press Shift Space now, nothing is happening here. So I actually have to type out Shift Space. Okay. As you can see, that is extrude and move on individual normals. So that's Shift Spacebar right there. So on the left, guys, you have your various modeling tools. The ones that most commonly used are extrude. If you left click and hold here, you will see there's actually 5 default extrude tools. Extrude region, extrude manifold, extrude along normals, which is what I've got the hotkey set to, extrude individual and extrude to cursor. So I've got extrude along normals set to shift space. And that's because that's what I find myself doing most of the time. So I've also got Alt S set to loop cut. So the way this works is that it kind of automatically positions itself in the center. But if you left click and hold, you can actually position it manually where you want it to be. Alright, once you do that, you can then actually change the number of cuts and change the smoothness as well. So most of the time I don't mess with these settings right here. I just use it at the default level, just inserting loops right here to sharpen things up and just to be able to add more details as well. And when I just extrude, it pretty much just goes straight like that. And there's a nice little detail right here. I can move that and there we go. All right, so I have cut set to Alt C once again because that's the default, or I should say the knife tool. I have the knife tool set to Alt C because that's the default in 3ds Max. And what I can do, guys, I can actually use the vertices and snap to them. So if you press space, you will confirm the cut. If you press E, you can start a new cut without confirming it, which means now if I don't press space, if I just right click, it cancels all that. So just be aware of that. Sometimes it's good just to press space to confirm it, and sometimes it's good just to press E to start a new one, and then either space to confirm or right click to cancel all that. So when you use the knife tool, it does make things more messy, but sometimes it's necessary to get the correct shape that you want. So here, I insert those loops, I have a lot of vertices to work with, and now I've got this kind of shape right here, which is getting, we're getting more complex shapes than just the default boxy shapes. So one of the difficulties of working with polygons, one of the strengths and weaknesses is that you do have to manage topology, but once you do that, you will get used to it and get very good results. Control plus on the numpad to grow your selection, Control minus to shrink your selection. So we can just kind of scale this whole thing, just kind of move this up or down. All right, so you're going to start noticing strange distortion happening here. And to me, guys, one of the tricks, so once again, I can Shift D, Control A that mirror. And now I've got this happening on both sides. So to me, one of the fun aspects of working with polygons is to master the bad topology and to get good results. Which is easier said than done, but that's what I want to help you do with this tutorial, is to really make polygon modeling, really realize the benefits of polygon modeling. I think a lot of people, guys, like to use Blender like a CAD program, and I think that they're not taking full advantage of Blender or, of course, CAD programs. So a lot of people will come into Blender and they will start to select this and just press Control B to do huge bevels. Then you can press S to change the number of segments, and then press A to change the size. So they will come in here and they will start to use Blender as a CAD program, even though Blender wasn't really designed that way. And then they will start running into lots of issues. They will try and subdivide. It doesn't really work, so they have to try and have all sorts of workarounds. Then they start to use, bevel. And so essentially, guys, I think if a lot of Blender users just picked up plasticity, for example, and stopped using Blender like a CAD program, they will discover that they get the best of both worlds. With plasticity, they get those amazing fillets that polygons will never be able to do, guys. You have to understand that you can never have the smooth fillets. You can never have the smooth fillets that a CAD program gives you. You can never have that with polygons because there's just too many limitations and you will eventually run into some bad topology issues. Likewise, the freeform tools that you get with polygons is something else that CAD doesn't have. The ability to select everything and to move it and to rotate it and to scale it. You don't really quite have that with CAD, and mastering this will allow you to really come up with a lot of interesting shapes. So I recommend, guys, in this tutorial series, we're not going to be trying to use Blender as a CAD program. We're going to be using Blender as a freeform program for really nice shapes. And then we can use plasticity as our CAD program. So we can very easily get very fun shapes. And then we can, you know, just do the knife tool here. We can bevel that. Too many segments here. I'm going to press S to decrease that. All right, let me lower that down to this. All right, so I'm an edge level to make this bevel happen. I can press 3 right away to go to face level, and I can extrude that right away. I can then select these faces, hold Shift to add X and delete that. As you can see, guys, we get these fun details happening very quickly. So with this tutorial series, guys, we're going to be mastering Blender, this type of Blender modeling, to get all sorts of fun details happening here. So I think the knife tool is very useful for that. So what I recommend is just kind of getting to grips with Blender's tools, learn to get comfortable with moving, rotating, and scaling. Get comfortable with extruding. Get comfortable with insetting. So Control Z to undo, Control Shift Z. I think maybe the default hotkey for redo. Get used to using circle, which I've set to once again Shift Alt D. Okay, for some reason it didn't quite circle perfectly here. Okay, there we go. And then so I use circle and then I use flatten right away. Then I use inset and extrude. And then we can actually scale after that. And then we can rotate after that. And then we can inset and extrude. As you can see, guys, we can just have lots of fun creating all sorts of details. I can select this, kind of move it back. Now we've got this kind of detail. We can move this vertex here. Now we've got this. We can insert some loops. So when you use the loop cut, you can press E to even it and then F to flip it. So notice how right now this edge is larger than this one because this whole thing is not even right now. You can see how it's very thin here and much thicker here. So to fix that, when you use the loop cut tool, you can press E to even it. And then F, you can see right now, it's trying to even it to this side. You can see how it's even right here, but it's not even right here. You can press F now to even out to that. And what that's going to do, guys, as you can see, it makes it much more consistent. Whereas previously, it was more like this. So we've got this happening here. We can very quickly just loop cut. So a lot of times, guys, of course, good topology is important, especially in the film industry. But a lot of times you can very easily get away with n-gons, which is a face with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or more sides. You can also get away with having triangles, which is a face with 3 edges. And as you can see, it actually does not cause anything horrible. So a lot of times, guys, you can get away with this. And I very much recommend it. I recommend focus on the design first, then topology second. So after watching this video, I want you to have fun using extrude, have fun using the knife tool. And then after you use the knife tool, so I'm holding Shift to deselect some things. All right, after using the knife tool, go ahead and inset, go ahead and extrude, go ahead and scale, go ahead and inset, and just kind of have fun creating some more freeform details. And then using a loop cut right here, don't worry too much about the bad topology. It's not going to affect things too bad unless you have some serious curves happening here. And just have fun experimenting with details. Try and create some more complex details. Try and really use the knife tool to create some details and angles. Don't just go with the default. Don't just go with the default, boxes here and just have nothing but this. And get more creative here and go ahead and use the knife tool. Go ahead and try scaling it after that. Go ahead and try rotating after that. Get some things happening at an angle. So Control X to remove the edge and the vertices. J, if you select two vertices and press J, you will connect them. So at the top right here, we have Auto Merge Vertices. If you activate that, if you press GG to slide this vertex, when it touches this vertex, it's going to merge together. As you notice, if I left click here now and move this, it's now a single vertex. If I Control Z to undo that and turn off Auto Merge Vertices, and then press GG, as you can see, it's going to stop there. But if I left click here, you can see it's still two vertices. So I recommend turning Auto Merge Vertices on and then GG. There you go. GG is a very good tool just to kind of spread out your topology. As you can see, even though we have a bad angle on here and a bad angle on there and a bad angle on here, it actually does not look too bad at subdivision time, but we do see some problems, so you can just kind of quickly try and fix things up like this. And now we've got this happening here. I'm going to select this edge, hold down Control, left click here, GG that. And I'm also just going to use the knife tool to cut here. There we go. So guys, go ahead and have fun creating some more details like this. And then you can go ahead, for example, and inset this circle. Sometimes we need to use circles several times. You know, quickly add a little hole right there. So as you can see, if you just zoom in here, you can really just create all sorts of fun details here. So look at that, guys. Just zoom in here and just have fun creating all sorts of details. All right, next we have things like X-ray mode, which is right here. I've got that set to Alt X. So you actually do need X-ray mode if you want to select behind a face that's not visible. So for example, all right, let me also cover view. We have frame all, frame selected, I should say. I've got that set to Z. So if I press Z with this object selected, it's going to zoom in on that. Select this, Z, select that, Z. If I press Alt Q, that's my hotkey for local view. So go to local view, toggle local view. As you can see, Alt Q. When I press Alt Q, just like in 3ds Max, it isolates it. Alt Q again, exits that. Alt Q, Alt Q, Alt Q, Alt Q. So I select that, press Alt Q, tab to go into edit mode. All right, I press 3 to go into face level. So if I make a box around this, even though it looks like everything is selected, if I go to behind, as you can see, because these faces are being blocked, I cannot select them. So I need to go into X-ray mode. Let's see, that's right here, X-ray mode, which I've set to Alt X. And now if I make a selection on everything and then get out of X-ray mode, you can see everything has been selected. So X-ray mode is just a very good hotkey to have as well. I've got F4 set to being able to see the faces. So let me see what that is. So key map, key binding, F4. It looks like it's the context toggle. Because if I turn off this thing, nothing is happening. So yes, it is the context toggle. Sometimes Blender has strange names for the different tools. This is context toggle right here, something space data wireframes. So here's an example of how a conflict can happen with the key maps. So if you try and set up this, you set that to F4, it could be overwritten by this right here. So notice how like right now, if I turn that on and press F4, this key map is overriding what I actually want it to be. So I have to go here and turn this off. We don't have to delete it. We just have to turn this off, and we can save preferences. or just make sure everything is working as we want it to be right here. So once again, if you set this hotkey to F4, it doesn't work, you just have to be aware something else may be overriding that hotkey, and you got to find that and turn that off, and then your intended hotkey will work. All right, so that is that. We got F4, we got Alt Q for isolating, we got Z for frame select. All right. So modifiers, we got of course mirror. We can have a single mirror modifier control both X and Y and Z. However, sometimes you may actually want multiple mirror modifiers because you also want to use a mirror object. So for example, let's say that I want to use this object and I want to mirror around that. Well, if I use this tool to select what I want, this is like an eyedropper selection tool. As you can see, it's now taking place around that, but I don't want the X to take place around it, but I do want the Z, for example, right? So I'm gonna undo that. So I'm gonna create a different mirror modifier. I'm gonna press Shift D. I would turn off the X, turn on the Z, and then for this one, I will use, let's say, this one right here. So let me just move that down. All right. So what's happening now is I'm using, for the first mirror modifier, I'm using the object's center, its pivot right here, to tell the object where I want the Z to take place. I mean, where I want the X to take place. But for the second mirror modifier, I don't want it to take place in the center necessarily, even though it kind of is right now because I haven't really done anything here. But you can see, for example, if I move this, I am now allowing this object to control where the Z takes place. So sometimes it's actually a good idea to have multiple mirror modifiers because for this one, I just want to use the center of it, the center. And for the Z, for this mirror modifier, I want to use another object to tell it where I want the Z mirror location to take place. So even though you can have X, Y, and Z on a single modifier, it's not always a good idea. Okay, so subdivision, of course, subdivides your mesh, makes it look all smooth and fancy. Weighted normal is what I use to smooth things out. So you can see without that, things would be very faster right here, but weighted normal makes it look smooth without needing to use this right here. All right, we've also got things like skin, or I should say solidify, which gives your object thickness. So one nice thing I like about Blender is that if I extrude this, it's actually not going to leave the inside empty. It's going to actually give it thickness. So it's actually going to leave these faces here. In 3ds Max, if you select faces on a plane, on a flat object, and extrude it, it's not going to have faces in the center. But in Blender, you can just quickly give thickness this way. But if you want things to be more modular, and you don't want to set them in stone by doing this, because now they're set in stone. Now the only way to get rid of this is to either delete the faces or to undo all that. But if you want things to be more modular, you can use the solidify modifier. Then you can change the thickness and the offset, and you can have different settings here. If you don't want the inside to be visible, if it's just taking up extra processing power, you can activate only rim to get rid of that. So what this will allow you to do is it will allow it to have the thickness be more customizable, and then once you're ready, you can actually Control A to apply that, and now the thickness is set in stone right here. So let's turn that off. So this is very useful in creating some sort of plating details. And let's say we cut that, and let's say we cut that. All right, and let's say we Control Shift. So the Control Shift, you can see if I hold Control Shift and select that, it actually does select some extra faces here. So I do have to delete that. I can, for example, press P to separate this and to have that be a separate object. So one cool thing about Blender is that you can press Shift D to duplicate these faces, right click, and now they're duplicated, but they're at the very exact position. You can now kind of move this where you want it to be. You can also simply press P to detach that, to separate that. So what's happening right now, guys, is that we've got all of these objects here that once you duplicate that, guys, it's got all the same modifiers here. So it's still got a solidify modifier. We don't have to reapply that. So we can go into materials. To apply materials, we'll simply click on new right here. Give this a name, let's say gray. So in order to make the material show up here in the viewport, I have this set to viewport shading. So studio, color, material. And so if we simply change this color right here, so here's the way it works, guys. This base color is for the actual render. So all of these are a bunch of settings for the actual render. But if you want to change, you notice how it's a little bit confusing because when I change this color right here, notice how nothing is happening in the viewport. But if I change this to the render, which is one of these, let me see here. Now you can see how it's showing up as being red. Now this actually changes. But if you're using this mode, then nothing is really happening here. To change the color here, you need to go into viewport display, and when you change the color now it's changing. So I recommend having a nice color, some nice metallic, which makes things a little bit more reflective. And the higher the roughness, the more matte the object will be. If you move this to the left, it'll be more reflective looking. All right, so we can have this set to gray, even though we need to change this as well just to make things less confusing here. All right, let's make this one red. New red. And we'll make this one a, we'll just keep it as the default. All right, so there we go, guys. We now have this nice system. I'm going to select all of them and press Ctrl-2 to subdivide. And now we have this nice system where we can modify this. So I'm going to apply solidify, Ctrl-A on that. But notice how it's not working because I'm in edit mode, edit level. So I'm going to Control-A that in object mode. Now I can actually modify that. Notice how using Control-Shift gave me a little bit extra. So I'm going to go ahead and hold down Control and left click to get that. All right, let's extrude that. So a very nice add-on from Blender is something that gives us set flow. So I've got that set to Control-Shift-S. So let me see what I've got that set to. Control-Shift-S is set edge flow. So I've got that set to Control-Shift-S. So in this situation, I can, of course, GG, but I can also use set flow to get this right here. And I can also set flow on this to give this nice curve right here. All right, so selection sets are really good for just, if you want to go back to this right here, you simply select that and you've got this selection again. So by default, Blender's method of using the vertex groups, it's very confusing and it's just not as good. It often gives you the wrong selection. So I recommend using, when you get the forgotten tools, I believe it also comes with the selection sets as well. There's also very nice things with forgotten tools such as dice faces, hinge, straighten, and there's very nice things with loop tools as well. So loop tools comes with Blender by default. Forgotten tools is a free add-on. So I can deselect all this and I can simply select that again. This can memorize vertices, edges, and faces. You can also delete the group as well. Another thing to understand is that sometimes it's better to use inset than extrude. So for example, if I select this right here and I extrude, unlike using the bevel tool in 3ds Max, I can't then I have to separately inset this, then I have to select this and remove that to get this situation. But if we use inset, guys, you can see at the top there, we've got some nice tools such as depth. So if I hold down Control, guys, you can see how I can actually change the depth and the inset. So it's when I use the inset tool, essentially I'm getting both extrude and inset, just like the bevel tool in 3ds Max. Hold Control to change this. So actually, guys, in many situations, it is actually a good idea to use inset as opposed to extrude. All right, guys, so let's say I want to add some detail here. I can insert some loops, select that, a very quick way to select to get details here. And then I can Shift D, right click, P on that, select that object, Tab, A to select everything, extrude that. And now, guys, look at that. I've got this nice little detail here. Let's change this to gray. And look at that, guys. We now just have a bunch of nice details working together. And so, of course, you can use creases, but for now, I'm just using support loops. So, guys, this is just a very nice method for detailing your objects. All right, let's apply mirror. As you can see, we usually want mirror to be above subdivision, so let's just kind of drag that up there. There we go. As you can see, guys, you can really just pile on the details and start getting very complex objects very easily. And you can have the objects work together. So now that we've got these details right here, it will be excellent to go in here and to do a little bit of this, and then maybe have a nice little detail right here to complement, because you kind of want your objects to work together, and you can see that they're now working together a lot better right here. So now this little vaguely triangular detail is working much better with this detail that we've got right here. So notice how when I'm scaling it, they're all scaling kind of together. That's because we want to change this from median point to individual origins. Now it's going to inset and scale individually. Some nice little dots here. So as you can see, guys, without the use of Boolean, I don't really like using Booleans a lot with polygons, just because I think Booleans work a lot better with CAD. So as you can see, guys, now you have a very good introduction to using Blender and to getting some nice freeform results with it. All right, guys, thank you for watching and take care.